Camping near the edge of Red Pine Woods was supposed to be a weekend getaway for me and my friends, a chance to unwind and escape the noise of city life. The forest was dense, silent, and unnaturally still, as if every tree was holding its breath. Locals had warned us about the woods, muttering strange tales about creatures that could mimic voices, but we laughed it off as nothing more than campfire stories. The first night went by peacefully, but on the second night, as we sat around the campfire, we heard a faint rustling nearby. We joked that it was just animals, but there was something off about the sound, too deliberate, like it was moving with purpose. My friend Jake stood up to check it out, calling into the darkness, "Hello? Anyone there?" The rustling stopped, and the forest fell silent again. But then, just as Jake turned back to the fire, a voice echoed from the shadows, mimicking his exact words. "Hello? Anyone there?" The voice was eerily identical to his, down to the pitch and tone. We all froze, exchanging nervous glances. It wasn't possible. No one else was out there, and the voice sounded wrong, like it was hollow, echoing through the trees in an unnatural way. Jake tried to laugh it off, but I could see the unease in his eyes. Suddenly, the voice called again, this time louder, closer. "Hello? Anyone there?" My heart pounded as we huddled together, our flashlights pointing toward the trees. And then we saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows, its form shifting as it moved. It looked like Jake at first, but as it stepped into the firelight, its face twisted, features warping into something monstrous, eyes empty and reflective, like a predator's. I grabbed Jake's arm, whispering, "We need to leave now." But before we could move, the creature's face split into a grotesque grin, its mouth stretching wider than any humans could. It mimicked my voice this time, a twisted version of my own words echoing back at us. "We need to leave now." That was when I realized this wasn't just a mimic, it was a skinwalker, and it was hunting us. Panic surged through us as the creature took a step closer, its eyes gleaming with hunger. It moved in jerky, unnatural motions, like a puppet controlled by invisible strings, each step more unsettling than the last. We stumbled back, but the creature only smiled, its mouth opening wider, revealing rows of jagged, animalistic teeth. Jake grabbed a large stick from the ground, holding it up like a weapon. "Stay back!" he shouted, his voice trembling, but the skinwalker only tilted its head, amused, and repeated in a chilling, twisted version of his voice. "Stay back!" The mockery in its tone was unmistakable, as if it enjoyed toying with us. Suddenly, it lunged at us, moving faster than anything I'd ever seen. We scattered, sprinting into the woods, branches slapping against our faces and tearing at our clothes. I could hear my friend's panicked breaths behind me, but above that was the sound of the creature, mimicking our voices in distorted echoes. "Run! Run!" it hissed, each word dripping with malice. I glanced over my shoulder, catching a glimpse of its shifting forms, now resembling our friend Lauren, her face twisted into an expression of terror. My blood ran cold as I realized it was mimicking her fear, using it to torment us. The creature was relentless, stalking us with an almost playful cruelty, its laughter echoing through the trees. We finally reached a small clearing, breathless and exhausted, but the creature was nowhere in sight. We tried to gather our wits, thinking we had a moment to catch our breath. But then, from the shadows, a familiar voice called out, "It's safe now. You can come out." It was my own voice, perfectly mimicked, calling to us from the darkness. Before we could react, a scream pierced the night. We turned just in time to see our friend Lauren being dragged backward, her eyes wide with terror as she disappeared into the shadows. Her cries faded, replaced by the creature's mocking laughter. We called out, but the only response was silence and the sinking realization that Lauren was gone. The creature had claimed her. Desperation clawed at me as I realized there was no outrunning this thing. It was faster, stronger, and smarter than any of us, but something in its gaze told me it wanted more than just to kill. It wanted to consume us, to wear us, to become us. I remembered the stories the locals had whispered, tales of creatures that wore the skins of their victims, mimicking them perfectly to lure in new prey. In a final act of defiance, Jake yelled, "We're not afraid of you!" His voice shook, but he lifted his stick again, his grip steady. The creature paused, its eyes narrowing as it considered him, as if calculating the exact moment to strike. And then, to our horror, it spoke in his voice, this time with an eerie precision. I'm not afraid of you, it repeated, each word dripping with malice. That was when I realized our only chance. If it thrived on fear, we had to deny it that power. I took a shaky breath, standing beside Jake and staring directly into the creature's hollow eyes. You're just a parasite, I spat, my voice trembling but resolute. All you can do is imitate. You'll never be us. For a split second, the creature faltered, its face twitching, as if our defiance had unsettled it. But then it lunged forward, its face contorting into a monstrous snarl. Jake and I bolted, running toward the edge of the forest. I could hear it close behind, its breath hot on my neck, but we didn't stop, fueled by a mixture of terror and sheer will to survive. We finally broke through the tree line, stumbling onto the road where a car's headlights blinded us. The driver screeched to a stop, and we scrambled inside, shouting for them to drive. As the car sped away, I glanced back and saw the creature standing at the edge of the woods, its face twisting and changing, cycling through the faces of each of us, including Lauren's. Its hollow eyes glared, a look of rage and hunger, as if promising we hadn't seen the last of it. Back in town, we reported the incident, but no one believed us. They called it a prank, a shared hallucination. But I knew what I'd seen, what we'd barely escaped. And every time I close my eyes, I see its face, twisted and grinning, wearing the skin of my friends, especially Lauren, waiting for the next time I step too close to the woods.